In this video, we dive into what happens when climbers hire budget guides to save money on deadly mountains. From a software developer who found a guide on Facebook Marketplace to a marketing executive whose expedition skipped critical acclimatization days, her symptoms turned fatal in the worst way possible. It was June 14, 2015, and Mount Rainier's Disappointment Cleaver route stood at 14,410 feet, its glaciated slopes visible from Seattle on clear days. The route crosses multiple glacier systems with extensive crevasse fields. Brennan Tovey was 34, a software developer from Bellevue, Washington. She'd been rock climbing at indoor gyms for 3 years and had done several 14ers in Colorado, but never anything technical with glacier travel. She wanted to summit Rainier before her 35th birthday, but balked at the cost of established guide services, which ran over $1,000. On a social media marketplace, she found Cody Rask, 29, advertising experienced mountain guiding for a fraction of the price. Cody's profile showed photos on various peaks, and Brennan didn't ask for certifications or references. Cody had hiked to Camp Muir multiple times, but had never summited Rainier or received any formal training in glacier rescue, crevasse navigation, or rope team management. He taught himself basic mountaineering skills from videos and books, but had never practiced crevasse rescue or led a rope team in technical terrain. Rangers at the visitor center asked Brennan about her guide service. When she mentioned Cody's name, they had no record of him as a permitted guide. They strongly recommended using an established service with proper credentials. Brennan dismissed this as unnecessary bureaucracy and continued with her plan. At Camp Muir, other climbing parties noticed Cody's lack of proper glacier gear. He had a single ice axe, but no Prusik loops, no pulleys, and minimal rescue equipment. One experienced climber asked Cody about his crevasse rescue training. Cody changed the subject and moved away. They began their summit push just after midnight. Cody set an aggressive pace, and Brennan noticed Cody seemed uncertain about route finding in the dark, stopping frequently to check his surroundings. Higher up the mountain, they passed several marker wands indicating safe passage, but Cody chose a more direct line to save time and distance. The snow was firm under their boots, but Brennan could hear hollow sounds beneath her feet in places, a clear sign of hidden crevasses below the surface. In the early morning hours, Brennan was following about 30 feet behind Cody on a rope team. Cody had tied the rope with too much slack and no proper backup system. They were crossing a flat section of the Ingraham Glacier when Brennan stepped onto what appeared to be solid snow. The snow bridge collapsed instantly. Brennan dropped through the surface and fell roughly 40 feet before the rope caught, jerking her to a violent stop. The sudden load pulled Cody off his feet. Cody slid across the snow before the rope snagged on an ice formation, stopping both of them. Brennan was now suspended deep in the crevasse, wedged between narrowing ice walls. She was conscious and shouting toward the surface. Cody, panicking, had no idea how to perform a crevasse rescue. He tried pulling the rope but couldn't lift Brennan's weight. Brennan's shouts grew weaker. The impact had fractured her pelvis and left thigh bone. She was rapidly losing feeling in her legs. The harness was cutting off blood flow as she hung suspended. Cody screamed for help, but the nearest climbing party was far below and couldn't hear him. Brennan called up, asking Cody to call for help. Cody had no phone signal and hadn't brought a satellite communicator or radio. After roughly 20 minutes, Brennan stopped responding. Cody, terrified and untrained, left the rope secured to the ice formation and carefully descended for help. He reached Camp Muir around 5:30 in the morning and alerted other climbers, who immediately contacted authorities. A rescue team was dispatched within the hour. A helicopter attempted to reach the location, but couldn't land due to high winds and poor visibility. Ground rescue teams began ascending on foot and reached the crevasse several hours after Brennan had fallen. They rappelled into the crevasse and found Brennan unresponsive, still suspended in her harness. Brennan Tovey's body was recovered later that day. The medical examiner's report listed cause of death as internal hemorrhaging, positional asphyxia, and hypothermia. Contributing factors included improper rope management, inadequate rescue equipment, and lack of guide certification. Investigators determined that Cody Rask had no formal certifications and had misrepresented his qualifications. He was cited for operating as an unlicensed guide. Brennan's family filed a civil lawsuit for negligence and wrongful death. The case was settled out of court approximately 18 months later. It was August 3rd, 2016, and the Grand Teton's Upper Exum Ridge route is one of the most sought-after alpine climbs in North America, rising to 13,770 feet. The route involves technical climbing on exposed granite, with significant fall potential. Bridget Dorrell was 29, a nurse from Minneapolis with 2 years of gym climbing experience and one previous guided climb on Mount Baker. She found a post in an online climbing forum from someone looking for 2 more people to split guide costs on the Grand Teton, $400 each instead of $1,200. The guide, Dustin Kemper, 31, was described as an experienced local climber. Bridget joined 2 other strangers who responded to the post, a 26-year-old teacher named Leah and a 33-year-old accountant named Nicole. None of them asked Dustin for his certifications, references, or proof of insurance before agreeing to the arrangement. None of them knew each other before meeting at the trailhead on the morning of the climb. Dustin had climbed the Grand Teton twice before via easier, less technical routes, but had never guided professionally, had no training in technical rescue, and had never led a rope team on the exposed sections of the Upper Exum Ridge. He was confident in his own climbing ability, but had no experience managing other climbers or making safety decisions for a group. At the ranger station, the group registered their climb. The ranger checked a list of permitted guides. Dustin's name was not on it. The ranger explained that commercial guiding requires permits and certification. Dustin claimed they were just friends climbing together. The ranger warned them about afternoon storms and recommended a turnaround time of noon. They began hiking around 4:30 in the morning. At the lower saddle, other climbers noticed Dustin's rope management was sloppy and his equipment incomplete. He was missing key cam sizes. At Wall Street, Dustin consulted a guidebook multiple times, appearing uncertain. Bridget noticed dark clouds building to the west but said nothing. By the time they reached the technical pitches, it was late morning, well past the recommended time. Late morning, approaching noon, Dustin was leading a pitch with Bridget belaying from below. Leah and Nicole were clipped to an anchor below them. Wind had picked up significantly. Bridget heard thunder. She called up, asking if they should descend. Dustin shouted back that they were almost to the top. Minutes later, lightning struck the summit block above them. The sound was deafening. Bridget's hair began to stand on end, a sign another strike was imminent. She screamed for Dustin to come down. Dustin, now 40 feet above his last protection, tried to down climb. His foot slipped. He fell 15 feet before his cam caught him, but the shock load caused it to shift and partially fail. He fell another 20 feet, swinging into the rock. The rope caught on Bridget's belay device. She held it, but the force slammed her into the rock wall. She maintained her grip. Dustin was now dangling below, dazed and bleeding from his head. Moments later, a second lightning strike hit the ridge above them. The electrical current traveled through the rock and metal gear. Bridget, still holding the belay with metal equipment attached to her harness, was struck as the current conducted through the metal gear into her body. Her body convulsed violently. Her muscles seized. She lost her grip. Dustin fell another 50 feet before the rope snagged on a rock horn, stopping him above Leah and Nicole. Bridget collapsed against the rock, completely unresponsive. Leah tried to reach her, but couldn't move from her anchor. Nicole pulled out her cell phone and found 1 bar of signal. She called for emergency help. A rescue helicopter was dispatched, but couldn't reach the location due to the ongoing storm. Ground rescue teams began ascending. After the storm passed, a helicopter was able to hover near the scene. A rescuer was lowered to the ledge. Bridget Dorrell was pronounced dead at the scene. Dustin had a concussion, several broken ribs, and lacerations, but was conscious. Leah and Nicole were physically uninjured, but in severe shock. Bridget's body was airlifted that afternoon. The autopsy confirmed death by lightning-induced cardiac arrest. The electrical current had disrupted her heart's rhythm, and it stopped beating. Contributing factors included inadequate guide credentials, poor weather judgment, and failure to turn around at the recommended time. Dustin Kemper was cited for illegal guiding and faced potential criminal charges for reckless endangerment. Leah and Nicole confirmed that none of them had verified Dustin's qualifications. Bridget's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit. The case went to civil court, and Dustin was found liable for negligence. He was ordered to pay damages to Bridget's family. It was September 19th, 2014, and Long's Peak in Rocky Mountain National Park rises to 14,259 feet. Its keyhole route, a non-technical but exposed scramble. The route involves roughly 15 miles round trip with over 5,000 feet of elevation gain. Natalie Pruitt was 27, a graphic designer from Austin, Texas, on a solo road trip through Colorado. She had hiked several trails at lower elevations, but had never attempted a 14er or anything involving scrambling on exposed terrain. At a hostel in Estes Park on the evening of September 18th, she met Wyatt Dunn, 25, a drifter who'd been traveling the West for the past 8 months. Wyatt claimed he'd summited Long's Peak multiple times and offered to take Natalie up the next morning. He said he knew the route extremely well. Natalie, eager for the experience and reassured by his confidence, agreed. She didn't ask detailed questions about his experience, didn't check the weather forecast, and didn't inform anyone of her plan. Wyatt had actually summited Long's Peak only once in perfect weather, simply following other groups. He had no training in navigation, no experience with route finding in poor visibility, and no understanding of altitude sickness or emergency protocols. They started hiking around 2:30 in the morning on September 19th without checking in at any station or leaving word with anyone. Natalie had borrowed a headlamp from the hostel, but had no proper insulating layers, no gloves, and only a small backpack with snacks and one water bottle. Wyatt had a backpack, but no map, no GPS device, and no first aid supplies. At the boulder field, Natalie began feeling lightheaded and slightly nauseous. Early signs of altitude sickness. Wyatt told her it was completely normal and to push through it. Other climbers noticed the pair seemed significantly underprepared and asked if they had warm layers. Natalie said she'd be fine. By the time they reached the keyhole, clouds were moving in rapidly from the west. An experienced climber descending from the summit stopped them and warned that the weather was deteriorating quickly and they should turn back immediately. Wyatt dismissed the warning, insisting they had plenty of time. Above the keyhole, the wind picked up dramatically. Natalie was shivering noticeably. Wyatt kept moving upward, and Natalie followed, not wanting to appear weak. High on the mountain, they were traversing the Narrows, a narrow ledge with a granite wall on one side and a sheer drop on the other. Visibility had dropped to less than 50 feet due to thick clouds and light snow. Natalie was moving very slowly, her hands numb from the cold. Wyatt was about 20 feet ahead, completely out of sight in the fog. Natalie called out, asking him to wait. He shouted back for her to keep moving and catch up. Moments later, Natalie's foot slipped on a patch of verglas, an extremely thin layer of ice on the rock ledge. She lost her balance and fell backward off the ledge. There was no rope connecting them, no protection of any kind. She fell hundreds of feet down the north face, her body tumbling and impacting rock repeatedly before coming to rest on a ledge far below. Wyatt heard her scream, and then complete silence. He scrambled back to where she had been standing and looked over the edge, but he couldn't see anything through the thick clouds. He began to panic. He pulled out his phone but had no signal. After several minutes of calling her name with no response and unable to see anything through the clouds, he made the decision to continue climbing to the summit, thinking he might find other climbers or get signal at the top. He reached the summit and found two other climbers. He told them what had happened. One of them had a cell phone with signal and immediately called for emergency help. Search and rescue was notified. A helicopter was dispatched, but couldn't fly initially due to cloud cover and falling snow. Ground rescue teams began ascending on foot. After the weather cleared somewhat, a helicopter was able to search the north face. Natalie's body was spotted on a rock ledge far below where she had fallen. She was recovered by helicopter and pronounced dead. Natalie Pruitt's body was transported to a medical examiner. The autopsy report listed the cause of death as massive blunt force trauma from a fall. Her skull was fractured in multiple places, her spine was broken, and she had severe internal injuries from impacting rock repeatedly. Contributing factors included complete lack of preparation, no safety equipment, poor weather judgment, and lack of experienced guidance. Wyatt Dunn was questioned extensively, but faced no criminal charges, as he had not presented himself as a professional guide or accepted payment. The case was ruled an accidental death. If you're enjoying these stories, please consider subscribing. It helps us bring you more content like this every week. It was July 22nd, 2017, and Mount Shasta in Northern California rises to 14,179 feet. Its Avalanche Gulch route, a popular but serious snow climb. The route involves roughly 7,000 feet of elevation gain over snow and scree. Dana Crane was 41, a real estate agent from San Diego, with no mountaineering experience, but a high level of general fitness. She'd been training with Jared Finch, 28, a personal trainer at her gym for roughly 2 years. Jared was an avid runner and CrossFit enthusiast who'd hiked Mount Whitney a couple of times and had done some winter hiking with microspikes. Dana wanted to summit Mount Shasta and asked Jared to guide her, offering him $500. Jared, confident in his fitness and outdoor experience, agreed, despite having never climbed Shasta, never used crampons or an ice axe in any technical capacity, and having no training in snow climbing safety. Dana trusted Jared completely, assuming that physical fitness would translate directly to mountaineering competence. At the ranger station on July 21st, Dana and Jared picked up their summit passes. The ranger asked about their experience with ice axe self-arrest. Jared said he'd done some snow hiking. The ranger strongly recommended taking a self-arrest clinic before attempting the climb. Jared declined, saying they'd figure it out. The ranger warned them about afternoon snow conditions and recommended summiting by noon and descending carefully. They camped at Helen Lake that night. Other climbers noticed Jared practicing ice axe technique for the first time, awkwardly jabbing the axe into the snow. One experienced climber offered tips, but Jared brushed him off, saying he had it under control. They started their summit push around 1:30 in the morning on July 22nd. The ascent went smoothly. The snow was firm and the route was straightforward. They reached the summit around 8:30. On the descent, around 10:45, the snow had softened significantly in the sun. Jared suggested they glissade down a steep section to save time and energy. Dana had never glissaded before. Jared demonstrated first, sitting down and sliding roughly 50 feet before stopping himself with his ice axe. It looked easy and fun. High on the mountain, Dana sat down in the snow and began to glissade down a steep slope. Jared was positioned about 100 feet below, watching. Dana immediately picked up speed, much faster than expected. She tried to dig her ice axe into the snow to slow down, but her technique was completely wrong. The axe simply bounced off the hard surface without catching. She was now sliding rapidly, accelerating. She panicked and let go of the ice axe entirely, trying to use her hands and feet to stop. This only caused her to start tumbling. She began cartwheeling violently down the slope, her body completely out of control. Jared screamed for her to self-arrest, but Dana had no idea how. Dana's body hit a large rock outcropping that protruded from the snow. The impact was catastrophic. Her head and upper torso struck the rock at high speed. She tumbled another 150 feet before finally coming to a stop in softer snow. Jared scrambled down the slope to reach her, taking nearly 8 minutes. Dana was completely unconscious, bleeding heavily from her head and not breathing. Jared had basic CPR certification from his personal training license. He began chest compressions, but Dana showed no response. Jared pulled out his cell phone and called for emergency help. He had a signal at that elevation. Search and rescue was notified immediately. A helicopter was dispatched. Due to the high altitude and thin air, the helicopter had to make multiple approaches before successfully landing. A paramedic reached the scene. Dana Crane was pronounced dead at the scene. Her body was loaded into the helicopter and airlifted off the mountain. Dana's body was transported to a medical examiner. The autopsy report listed the cause of death as severe traumatic brain injury from blunt force impact. Her skull was fractured extensively, and her brain was severely damaged from hitting the rock at high speed. Her neck was also broken. Contributing factors included complete lack of proper ice axe training, inadequate guide experience, and extremely poor judgment regarding glissade conditions. Jared Finch was not charged with any crime, as he had not operated as a licensed commercial guide, and the arrangement was considered a private trip between friends. Dana's family strongly considered filing a wrongful death lawsuit, but ultimately decided against it. The case was ruled an accidental death. It was October 6, 2018, and Mount Kilimanjaro's Umbwe route rises to 19,341 feet, the most direct and aggressive path to the summit. The route is the steepest approach to Kilimanjaro, gaining altitude extremely rapidly. Claudia Simmons was 38, a marketing executive from Charlotte, North Carolina, who'd always dreamed of summiting Kilimanjaro. Standard expeditions cost several $1,000s and take 7 to 8 days to allow for proper acclimatization. Claudia found an online company offering a 5-day Umbwe route expedition for significantly less, roughly $1,600. The company, based in Tanzania, advertised fast and efficient climbs for experienced hikers. Claudia had hiked extensively at low elevations but had never been above 10,000 feet. She didn't research the company's safety record, didn't consult with a doctor about altitude risks, and didn't understand the dangers of ascending too rapidly. The expedition company, focused on maximizing profits, ran multiple trips simultaneously with minimal staff and deliberately cut acclimatization days to reduce costs. Kilimanjaro's Umbwe route is the steepest and most direct route, gaining altitude extremely rapidly. Proper acclimatization requires gradual ascent. The body needs time to adjust to lower oxygen levels. If ascent is too rapid, acute mountain sickness can progress to high-altitude cerebral edema. Fluid accumulates around the brain, causing it to swell, which is fatal without immediate descent. Claudia arrived in Tanzania on October the 6th, 2018, and met her group, 6 other climbers and 2 guides. The head guide, Hamisi, spoke limited English and provided only a minimal safety briefing. No one checked the climbers' medical histories, fitness levels, or previous altitude experience. They began hiking on October the 7th, ascending over 4,000 feet in a single day. Claudia felt fine. On the second day, October 8th, they climbed another 3,500 feet, reaching a camp at over 13,000 feet. Claudia began experiencing a headache and mild nausea that evening. She mentioned her symptoms to Hamisi, who told her it was normal and gave her ibuprofen. Other climbers were also showing symptoms. One woman was vomiting repeatedly. Hamisi told everyone they would feel better after rest. On the third day, October 9th, they ascended another 2,300 feet to Barafu camp at over 15,000 feet. Claudia's headache had worsened dramatically. She was dizzy, severely nauseous, and had difficulty eating. She told Hamisi she felt very sick. He told her to rest in her tent and drink water. He didn't offer to supplemental oxygen. The company didn't carry any, and didn't suggest descending. Claudia went to her tent around 5 in the evening to rest before the planned midnight summit push. That evening around 8:15, Claudia's tent mate, a woman named Morgan, noticed Claudia was breathing very irregularly, short, gasping breaths with long pauses between them. Claudia appeared confused and couldn't speak clearly. Morgan immediately called for Hamisi. He entered the tent with a flashlight. Claudia was semi-conscious, her lips showing a distinct bluish tint, her breathing extremely labored. Hamisi recognized these as signs of severe altitude sickness, but had only minimal medical training and no emergency oxygen. He made the decision to begin immediate descent, but it was completely dark and the terrain was treacherous. He called for the assistant guide to help carry Claudia down. They attempted to move Claudia out of the tent. She was completely unable to walk or support her own weight. They tried to support her between them, but she collapsed entirely. Her breathing became even more erratic, very irregular patterns consistent with her brain swelling. Hamisi used a radio to contact base camp, requesting emergency evacuation, but helicopter rescues at night on Kilimanjaro are extremely difficult due to the extreme altitude, darkness, and weather conditions. Claudia stopped breathing entirely. Hamisi and the assistant guide immediately began CPR, but she showed no response. She remained completely unresponsive. A rescue team was dispatched from a lower camp, but couldn't reach Barafu camp for several hours due to darkness and difficult terrain. By the time they arrived carrying a portable oxygen system, Claudia had been unresponsive for over 4 hours. A doctor traveling with the rescue team examined her and confirmed she had died. Her body was carried down the mountain over the next 2 days. Claudia Simmons's body was transported to a medical facility where a doctor confirmed the cause of death as high-altitude cerebral edema. Her brain had swollen from fluid buildup caused by ascending far too quickly, and the increasing pressure had caused her brain to stop functioning. Contributing factors included dangerously rapid ascent, inadequate acclimatization time, lack of supplemental oxygen, and delayed recognition of life-threatening symptoms. The expedition company faced scrutiny from tourism authorities, but continued operating. Claudia's family filed formal complaints and attempted legal action, but international jurisdiction made the case extremely complicated. The case was ultimately ruled an accidental death. Thanks for watching. If you like these stories, click here.